Okay, what we're going to do at this time is just try to reminisce a little bit here with the different Palmer boys, and it's a real pleasure to be here with each one of them. But we got Uncle Ken first, Uncle Ken Palmer. And Uncle Ken, what we just want to ask you is what you might remember, if anything, about your granddaddy, which would be John, and as a boy, and what he was like and so forth, what he did for a living, or what, when you visited them, possibly something that might stand out or whatever.
Well, I guess thinking back, of course, the other boys will remember much more than I will. Granddaddy, Big John, was a sawmill man. He cut a lot of that wood around the Clemson area there. Then the next thing I remembered that he ran a little store over at Norris on the old road where you used to go across the bridge going toward Liberty. There on the right, he ran a little store, and of course lived on the left across the road there, and then the railroad tracks wasn't too far behind the house. And of course, Granddaddy had an old dog, and
what kind of dog was it?
Bulldog.
Bulldog?
It's one of these that's sort of outlawed today. They won't let you have them.
Like a Rottweiler or
well, it wasn't a Rottweiler, but it was a pit bull.
Pit bull. Oh yeah.
It's an old brindle dog, and
Yeah.
that was a mean dog. And of course, he tried to keep us away from it. Another thing that I remember, I guess I wasn't maybe 6, 7, or a little younger than that. And Brother Clint and I, one Sunday afternoon, Daddy and Mama and carried us over to Norris there, to Granddaddy's grandma's, and we was going to stay a week with them. So everything was fine until Daddy and Mama left to go back to Seneca. And of course, I began to get homesick by the time they got out of sight. And Granddaddy said, well, let's go to the store and get you a piece of candy. And of course, that didn't sit too well with me. And I guess I cried and cried and cried. The next day, I remember Granddaddy, somebody stopped at the store going to Seneca, and he said, told him, said, you tell Lee to come over here and get this bald-gutted young'un, said he's driving us crazy. And I sure was glad to see Daddy and Mama roll up and carry me back home. Don't remember too much more about Granddaddy. I do remember about Grandmother. You want me to go ahead?
Yeah.
After Granddaddy passed on, Grandma used to take turns about staying with each one of the children, like she'd come to our house and stay a week or so, and then she'd go to Aunt Mag's and stay a week or so.
Yeah.
And I see the fishermen are coming back in and out.
Yeah.
You want us to keep going?
We'll wait just a minute, let all these boys get in here. They've been out fishing, it looks like.
Where the hell you fellas
Caught
been?
all the trap.
For y'all.
All right, let's continue on.
Okay, now, like I said, Grandma would come to our house and stay maybe a week, 10 days or 2 weeks. Then she would move on to Aunt Eva, Aunt Mag, some of the other members of the family.
By the way, what was her name?
What was Grandma Palmer's name? Matt?
Can anybody remember?
I can't come to me in a minute.
That's what I was always curious of.
But we'll come up with it. All of us be thinking, surely we can come up with it.
Let me tell you, her name was Ali, but they called her the boy.
Her name was Ali, but they called her the boy. That's what Granddaddy used to say. Granddaddy Palmer, yeah.
She was a Pritchard before she married.
Yeah.
Right, Pritchard before she married.
And I'm trying to think.
I want to say Maddie, but it wasn't Maddie. Hattie. That's bad. You can't remember your.
No,
We're not on there now.
No, it's been six.
Matilda, I can remember Grandma Palmer very well. She was a neat type person. She wore her hair up in a bun pulled back. She wore those long dresses that came down to the floor. There was no hook or nothing like that. She wore those high top shoes, button up shoes. She wore a white apron over all that, and she was real neat. And I can remember her sitting around there at the house, rocking in the chair, humming. She hummed right much, and of course it got on my mother and your grandmother's nerves right much when grandma said, the humming and rocking, you know, as old people will. Cut me off. Seneca. Now I can't remember it too well, but I do remember the first house that we lived in there in Seneca. We lived by, I guess, the most affluent people. We had a doctor on one side of us, Dr. Sharp. He was a black fella, but nice neighbor.
Hey, the Reverend Hicks.
And what was that? Fairplay Road that we lived on?
No.
Buckhannon lived next to us, didn't he?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, no, that was Oak Street.
Okay,
Oak and 4th.
okay. And Aunt Hattie, the black lady, lived across the street from us. And I'm going to tell you why I never did like chicken and don't eat chicken today. We used to walk over at Aunt Hattie, and Aunt Hattie always kept a bunch of old setting hens. And I was just a little fella, and one of them
had a dress on.
old setting hen flogged me, and I didn't have enough sense to get out of the way, and old hen just kept flogging, and I've hated the chicken ever since, and that's one reason I don't eat chicken.
Chicken today.
Today I don't eat it. Cut me off.
Okay.
Now
Well,
what we want to do.
now, I want you to, okay. All right, I want you to tell this story, the one that I've heard for years, but I want to hear your side of it, about child abuse in the Palmer home. And one of them was the time Grandmother Palmer gave you a whipping and somehow or another a nail hit you in the back of the head. Tell me what you remember of that story. We've laughed about it for years.
It was jerked out of her hand.
Whipped his ass. Well, I guess probably one of the things I hated was to get a whipping. And Mama could lay one on you. Mama probably gave us more whippings, probably 25-1 than Daddy did. And she knew how to whip. I remember we had peach trees and everything else. She'd go get a hickory and I'd get one, and I would nearly break the thing in two. When she'd hit one time, it'd break, and I said, well, maybe she'll quit, but she wouldn't.
Go ahead and
And I wouldn't stand still. She'd say, stand still. Well, you know, anybody with good sense ain't gonna stand still and somebody whip them. And that'd make her mad because I'd go round and around, and she couldn't get to me to whip me like she wanted to. So one day, we was living over on Cherry Street then. We was out there on that old back porch, and there's some nails driven in the wall, and she got a hold of me and pushed me up against the wall, and of course my head hit the wall, and the nail hit the nail, and of course I felt it pretty good, but it didn't do nothing but scratch me, and I reached back there and bore hairs of blood, and I said, Mama, you killed me, you killed me. And of course, she quit whipping me, and she got sort of concerned, so she saw it wasn't nothing but a scratch. I thought she was going to start on me again, but she didn't.
now, cut it off a minute.
I completely forgot about this. This is for Clint's benefit. He talked about the screw getting my nose, and it was a wood screw, I guess. And I just took the thing and started screwing my nose. And it fit pretty good. And it just kept going. Finally, and I couldn't get the darn thing out. I think been so long, I believe they had to carry me to the doctor, didn't they, Clint, to get the thing out.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those childish things that you
Didn't have many toys, and you found a screw.
right. I guess one other thing I want to tell about, and other boys can tell it how they see it. every Saturday, generally, we had to saw enough wood, cut up enough wood for wood stove, cook on wood stove for the next week. And the old cordwood that was going to saw and split was laying out there in a pile. And generally, when they say split that pile of wood, and they give you a dime, and you can go to the show. And of course, all of us like to go to them Western shows on Saturday afternoon, and we'd start hiding wood up in old man Williams' cotton field and under the buildings and anywhere we could hide it. And one Saturday, we were going along pretty good. I believe, if I remember correctly, John and George were sawing with a cross-cut saw, two-man cross-cut saw, on a sawhorse. Calvin was sitting on the sawhorse holding the wood. Clint, I forget what he was doing. He might have been
Splitting it again.
splitting it or either putting it on the sawhorse when they sawed it. I forget how it went. But we got to cutting the buck and having fun and laughing, and Calvin got his hand up there too far and that saw went across there. And he like to lost about, I was going to say 5 or 6 fingers, but I think 5 on one hand. He like to lost them, and I don't remember where we carried Dr. Webb, who we carried him to, but he sewed him back on and did very well. But I'm not going to tell you about the whipping we got after that. We got a pretty good one after we found out he wasn't going to lose his fingers.
What do you remember about, say, going to school and things like that? And did you have a lunch? Did you get?
That brings up a lot of fond memories. I started in 1st grade. We still live over there on Cherry Street. And the schoolhouse wasn't wasn't 4 or 5 minutes away. We'd walk down the hill and up another hill, and there was the schoolhouse. And I remember either in the 1st or 2nd grade, I think they blamed this on me, but I believe it was Clint, but they said it was me. Everybody brought a little lunch to school. And school used to let out at 12 o'clock. You go home and get your dinner, come back at 1, school start back again. But, you know, you got hungry in the meantime, and seemed like Miss Irvin was, I believe, a 2nd grade teacher, and she either asked me or Clint one, I can't remember, it's been blamed on me, like I said, why don't you bring some lunch? And one of us said, well, there wasn't nothing left from breakfast. We got through eating. I finished school at old Seneca High School back in 40. Should have finished in 39, but I was a great football player, you know. I thought I had to play that extra year, which I did. And we had a pretty good football team, and I enjoyed it. Had some fond memories. And I guess I got more education in Seneca High School than I did down at Clemson. I'm going to call it college, because that's what it was when I was at Clemson College or Clemson University.
One of the last things I want to ask you is what your fondest memory is of your mother, Grandmother Palmer. What do you think of what do you like to think of when you remember her? I mean, something that stands out. Your mother.
Okay.
Your mother.
Of course, we all felt more secure when Mama was there. I can remember her and Daddy going to visit somewhere and leave us there at night, and we'd get scared and upset. Mama probably was the stronger of the two, of Daddy and Mama. She had probably a better head on her than Daddy did about business and this, that, and the other. I can fondly remember one time, back when I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, state didn't furnish books. You had to buy your own books, and we'd gone down to Harper's 5 and 10 cent store. They were one of the bookstores back then to either buy new books or used books or something. We'd get books, and Mama had bought, I think, me a spelling book, a geography book, whatever it was I needed. And the clerk didn't give her back the right change. And Mama said, you know how Mama could do that mouth? She said, well, told me, said, well, let's go down here and pick me up something to make up for the difference. And that scared me to death. I said, Mama, please don't. I got to see Mama in jail right there.
Yeah.
But that was one of the fond memories. And of course, coming home after the war and seeing the family was another memory that I'll cherish and remember for, a long time or forever, for that matter. Mama was always there when you needed her. Of our 3 children, she came and helped me and helped Rachel, and she was there when they were born, and a lot of comfort to them.
Mm-hmm. Same question concerning your daddy.
I feel like $100.
Granddaddy Palmer.
All right.
Granddaddy to you and Kathleen, and Daddy to we boys, was a hard-working man. I don't know where there's another man worked as hard as Daddy did, trying to make a living. Back in the 20s and 30s, it was difficult to have anything, let me put it that way. Hard worker, just to do just about anything he could for you, try to advise you what to do, what not to do, how to act. I can remember back in the school age again playing football. I can remember one of the first banquets, football banquets we call it, that we had that at Seneca High School. Granddaddy had it, and somehow or another managed to pay for it, and it was a real inspiring thing, enjoyable thing, and pleasant memory to think back and, think on that type of thing. Daddy was very mechanically inclined, as you well know, running the shop, and could just about do anything. And of course, all of the boys worked at the shop. And me being the younger one, other than Calvin worked there in the office. Why, I don't know. Maybe the rest of them were higher on the totem pole than I was. But I got to put in more old broke springs and old 36 Fords than the rest of them. Or either get to knock out them old kingpins there, kingpins that keep shimming up there. And those were 2 of my jobs. And then rear spring was one that I always got. I think they'd come get me out of the sick bed to put a tire bolt in an old rear spring. I can remember too, Daddy had just rebuilt a motor in I won't say 37, but it could have been a 40 Ford. And it was either on a Christmas, I believe it was on a Christmas morning, I'd gotten that thing. And I drove driving up toward where the hospital was there in Seneca. And I expected I was going about 75 or 80, and the thing was whoop. Of course, it threw a rod and tore the motor up. Granddaddy was right gracious. I didn't think he was going to kill me for about 3 times, but he didn't say too much. And I really hated the thing did that, but while that tie rod come loose, not the tie rod, while the connecting rod come loose, I don't know, but I can remember that.
Well, I tell you what, this has been real interesting with you remembering your part of the story. What we want to do now is try to get Uncle George and my dad up here and see what they can remember from as far back as they can and build forward. Thank you, Uncle Ken. Appreciate it.
We're over in Liberty? No, Norris.
Norris, it was in
Oh
Norris.
yeah, on the side of the road.
Yeah,
Right there before you cross the overhead bridge.
Right.
We couldn't find your lighter, but Alan bought y'all one.
Oh, a pale pink one.
By the way, I got the refrigerator full of candy bars,
Candy.
guys.
Candy.
Up in the freezing compartment so the roaches couldn't get
And
to
we
them.
got, Al got Max Light charcoal stuff.
See if you can find George out there. Scare the hogs away. See if there's anything left of him.
Hey, Tony, you down there fishing?
You gotta be kidding.
Well, tell me, look down here, can you tell me who that is, Al? Because there's somebody right down there.
You got a cowboy hat on?
Okay.
How many do we have there?
37, you said.
37 or 38, I'm not sure.
We want to do a little video of them later. You can hold them up. We need to get a real good picture in front of that banner out there.
Y'all seen the sign?
Yeah, we saw it.
We're gonna pass out the guns and get a picture made on that
All
sign.
right. I did.
Okay, we got Uncle Clint Palmer now. He's gonna do some reminiscing for us. And first of all, who were you named after?
Well, I was named after Henry Clay. That's all I remember.
Okay.
That's where the Henry part came. That
Okay.
is my first
I
name.
was always curious about that.
Henry C.
What I'd like for you to do now, Uncle Clint, is to go back as far as you can and tell me everything that you can remember concerning your granddaddy, Big John Palmer, and his wife, and maybe a visit you had, something that stands out to you. By the way, did anybody remember Grandmother Palmer's name yet?
Her first name, I do not remember that.
Okay, we haven't come up with that yet. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think it was just a common name. But
Yes, it is, but
Well,
it'll probably come to us
It'll do.
during the
later.
interview or something,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, just go ahead and tell me what you remember.
I know Kenny, I overheard Kenny telling you about being there at grandmother's and granddaddy's in Norris when they lived across the street from the little store that he ran. And he sold drinks and candy and stuff like that. And I remember he made some homebrew.
Yeah.
And I remember that there was homebrew, I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of it before. So I found some over there in the store. I went over to the store looking around one day and I tasted it, and it made me pretty sick. So I didn't fool around with homebrew anymore.
Homebrew meaning like beer, or
Like
was it
beer,
more like
yeah.
liquor? Or?
Like beer,
Yeah.
yeah. It was on the same scale as beer. And then too, I remember when we went to visit them on one Christmas day. And Ken forgot to tell you this, or he didn't think of it. We had gotten, Santa Claus had brought me in particular, might have been some of the other boys too, an air rifle for Christmas. And we were visiting them on that Christmas day, or the very next day, I'm not sure exactly what day it was. But anyway, Ken and I was outside, and Ken was about 20 feet from going around the corner of the house. And he says, when I holler, I'll give you a leaf. And I said, okay. So he hollered, he was just about ready to turn the corner, and I cracked down and hit him right in the butt. And I remember Dad beating the hell out of me for that. Kenny crying like hell, Dad beat the hell out of me for that. I'll never forget that. And also remember how when we were there at other times that Granddad used to go to bed with the chickens. He'd go to bed just about dusk dark, or just before dark. And he was a big fella. I guess he weighed 350 pounds.
Drunk a lot of liquor.
And he was bald-headed. And he didn't walk fast. He didn't take big steps. He took little steps because he was so big, I guess, and trying to balance himself. But anyway, I remember how he used to drink. He used to keep homebrew. He kept one under his bed, a demijohn, about the gallon-sized demijohn. Used to keep under his bed, and I've seen him sit up in the bed and reach down under the bed and get that thing and take a few swigs and sit it back under the bed and lay back down and go back to sleep. I do remember that, and I do remember he had it available in other parts of the house too, that he could get whenever he wanted one. And I also remember my dad telling me about his dad when he was young, that Granddaddy Palmer had one of the biggest, or the largest lumber
Sawmill.
snaking team, sawmill-like thing,
Yeah.
that they snake logs. They use mules to snake them out, and they had one of the biggest ones in that part of the county, up in that area. And he did know a lot about the lumber and things like that. and cutting down trees and snaking logs and all of that. And another thing I remember is in that house in Norris, he had a big old dog, a big old black crossbreed, a German Shepherd or something. Because I was just a young kid and I don't remember the names of the types of breeds of dogs, but it seems to me like it was a big German Shepherd. He'd go out and get a big piece of stove wood in his mouth and come back in, back and forth till he filled the box, the wood box. But it's a pretty smart dog anyway.
What do you remember about Grandmother Palmer? Was she like in the kitchen mostly, or did she help out in the store, or?
No, I don't recall her helping out in the store at all. I don't remember seeing her over there. I don't remember
He
her.
didn't allow her in there. He didn't allow
I
her.
didn't.
Well,
I
in
didn't
other
think so.
words, their
I don't
house,
remember seeing her ever cross the highway.
they didn't sleep in the back or anything. It was a separate building from their house altogether.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was across the road.
Yeah,
Definitely.
okay.
It was across the road, and it's just a little store. I'd say it was about the size of this room here, but it was on a shotgun type
Yeah.
building, old building like. I do remember when Grandmother used to come to visit us when we were young boys, and at that time she was losing her mind, and we'd be sitting down to eat, and Dad had to walk back and forth to work because we didn't have a car then, couldn't afford a car, and Mom would say, save the biscuits for Dad because she didn't have enough cooking, and just for Dad perhaps, and so Dad could eat and get back to work. Well, Mom would say, save the biscuits for Dad, boys. And I remember Grandma always used to give one, yeah, save it for your Dad, boys, and get one. And I remember that very distinctly.
Yeah.
Very distinctly, I remember that. And also remember her sitting and rocking. She sat and rocked more than anything else. And I know that when my grandfather died,
What do you remember about how he died, or?
Well, what I have been told, I don't know, and I might be exaggerating a little. It may not be true, but I've been told or learned to believe that that he drank so much, and it was in the wintertime that he sat down in the snow to take a drink to rest a little bit, and he froze to death. That's the way I understand his death occurred. That he froze to death sitting under a tree, even though it was in the middle of winter and ice and snow on the ground.
Probably on his own property, or you think he was out sawmilling, or?
I think perhaps it was on his own property.
Yeah.
I do. I don't know now. I'm just assuming that. I'm really not sure because I've never heard the true facts on it yet. But I do remember those things, and I don't remember grandmother or granddaddy, either one. I don't think he even knew how to drive a car. Cars weren't out at that time. Didn't have automobiles at that time. No one around could afford one, and we had never seen one at that time. Of course, this is back in the middle 20s. This when this was, or the late 20s. And that's about all I can remember about those two. I do recall, too, that I was run over by a car when I was around 12 or 13 years old, and I do remember grandmother at that time coming to stay with us a little bit and help Mom out while they were trying to take care of me a little bit. I do remember that. But that's about all.
What do you remember around the household, like when you was a kid?
What we used to do?
Yeah.
Well, we had a good neighbor. I do remember this. We had a good neighbor that lived up above us about maybe 50 or 75 yards right next to us on that street. And we were the only two houses on the street at that time. And I remember that the name was Williams. They were nice people, and she was very friendly with Mom, and she were very close friends, and sewed together, worked together, and cooked together. And I remember they used to can a lot of food. We grew our own food. We always had beautiful gardens. Both of us, both Mrs. Williams and Mom and Dad, all of us there had a good garden, and they would can together. And I do know that Mrs. Williams would beef cattle a kilo of beef, and they would even can beef. I remember eating that beef, and I know it was some of the best food I ever ate in my life. Some of the canned foods that Mom and Mrs. Williams put up. Also remember we didn't have anything to play with at that time, and the house wasn't underpinned or anything that we lived in, and we used to get under the house and push bricks around, the little blocks of wood for cars and things like that. And I remember Mom when she would
And bricks with holes in them was deluxe bombs.
yeah, those were the big Buick type of holes in them. You could put your thumb and finger and slide them along pretty good. But I do remember also Mom was pretty rough with that hickory. And she used to make us all go out and break our own switch. And if we didn't come in with a good size one, about the size of your little finger, she'd send us back out to get another one. Or hit us a lick or two, but now go get me a switch and send us back out. And I remember the time too, we'd be playing and Mom would be sewing or something, and she'd ask us to shut up or something. We'd be talking or cutting up too much in the house, and she would call us over, and she would take that thimble, have that thimble on her finger, and just pick the hell out of us with that thimble, and it hurt. And I remember one time that she was mad at John or George, one, I don't know which one, that she picked up a piece of stove wood and threw it threw a piece of stove wood. I remember that.
Quieten them down.
Yeah, quieten them down. I do remember that. It was real good.
Who was the favorite child?
Favorite kid? I don't know who the favorite was.
The girls, probably.
Yeah.
Girls.
Yeah, well, there was 5 of us boys right in a row, and I'm sure you can imagine how it would be for a mother and father with 5 boys, and all of them right in a row, and just a year or two difference between them, and how it was to try to have a car or have anything. But I tell you one thing, Mom made girls out of all of us before the girls ever got big enough to do anything, because we knew what it was like to scrub clothes on an old scrub board and build a fire around the old black pot and boil the clothes and rinse them and everything else, and mop floors and wash dishes and everything else. We did what girls normally do around the house, plus chores like cleaning out the stables and hauling leaves up for the cows and things like that, and sawing the wood and bringing it in the house. And we had a big back porch there at that house, and that's where we ate. We ate all the time out there on that back porch, and I remember Mom was chasing somebody through the house one day, and I believe it was Kenny. I'm not sure, and that she was after him, and he ran around on the back porch and ran right through the screen door getting away from And we had a nice barn up there. Old man Bob Boyd built the barn for Dad. He and Dad got together and agreed on the price or something to build a barn. And we always had a cow. And
I had to milk it down.
and we all milked the cow. We took turn about milking the cow, but maybe Ken might have milked it more than anyone else.
Who?
I had a little part-time job that kept me busy with a lady that lived over across the way on the other side of the schoolhouse, Mrs. John Bonk Price, Jude Price's mother. I worked for her a little bit and made $3 a week.
Doing what?
Doing chores for her, cutting her grass and going getting her cow and bringing it up and feeding it and tying it out and staking it out, and maybe go to the store and pick her up a few groceries or something like that. And I remember we had to milk the cow at our house too, and we took turns about. And I remember very distinctly in the wintertime, the old cow, after it relieved itself from the kidney relief, and it would hit her tail, on the end of her tail, it would freeze, and how she'd swing that tail around, hit you right in the face with it if you pinched her while you were milking. And I remember how she'd lift up one foot and put it in the bucket. And the one that happened to be milking that time didn't drink any milk, that milk. So I don't know how many times, I know she put a foot in the bucket a lot of times with me, so I don't know how much I drank when she did it with the other boys. But the old cow's name was Daisy, and she had a calf. a baby calf, and the calf's name was Beauty. And it was a nice, very, very nice cow and calf, and I think Dad sold them or something with it later, I don't know. But Daisy got a hold of some poison, or a snake bit her, or she swallowed some glass or something, and she died. That's when she looked like she turned into a leopard. They had black stripes all across her back and down the side of her belly. And we figured it's either a snake bit her, or she got poison, ate some glass or something, broken glass, and it was poisoned somehow. I do remember that. And that's about all I can recollect at this time.
What is your fondest memory of your mother? What you like, how you like to remember
My
her?
fondest memory of Mother could use, shall I say, light profanity at times. She could not cuss like a sailor, but she could use a little profanity now and then. And I remember one time she took us to the Anderson County Fair in the car once, and we were coming back, and it's just about dusk dark, or maybe just a little bit after dusk dark, and the tail light was burned out or something on the car, and the highway patrolman stopped her up about Pendleton or somewhere along there, and she could say a little bit of profanity after she let him go, and we got on home, and I remember that. I also remember when the first car that Dad ever bought, I think it was a 25 or 26 Model T. And I remember when we'd go down to visit someone, or he'd always take back roads, as the roads weren't good then, or take the only paved road there was at that time. But anyway, I remember we used to give out of gas quite often. This one time I remember we gave out of gas, and he had to walk about 3 or 4 miles to the nearest house and get kerosene is all they had, and came back and put it in the old Model T and brought us on home on kerosene. Didn't run too well, but it did run, and got us back home. And I remember one time he was trying to turn around, and he backed out and went down a big bank like this, the Model T, and how Mom let out a little few profanities first in.
I always remember grandmother saying things like, instead of cussing around us grandchildren, she'd say something would happen, she'd say, God bless America, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Well, who's the child that this headstone was at Grandma and Granddad's house? We saw it at South.
Yeah, we never saw it, was never placed, the headstone of the baby that was born dead or whatever.
That was mine, passed baby.
Oh,
And we
was
were
it?
told that it was placed. And it was placed, and I saw it placed out in the cemetery down there across from the old church, the old Methodist church, right down there, like you used to go to the Boy Scout
Yeah, oh yeah.
house and football field out that way.
Well, I just remember it
this
for years and years
Yeah,
being
laid there, but it finally was
Yeah.
Oh,
placed.
okay, so that's what that was.
Because we went down and
Oh,
saw it.
okay.
And,
Well,
you know,
I didn't
our first child was stillborn.
Was it a boy or girl?
That wasn't the one. That was there, but that wasn't the one.
This is one that went to Pendleton.
That's the one that went to Pendleton. I carried it myself and put it up.
Oh,
Whose was it, Larry County?
It was
One
my
of the oldest-
brother, the one who was born dead, the first brother. Don't turn it on me right
Mother
now.
and
Now I
Dad's,
got to go
Mother and
bed.
Dad's,
I-
Mother and Dad's first child was stillbirth.
Yeah. okay.
First shot.
And it was a little boy.
Yeah.
Could've been.
Yeah.
It was. And y'all lost your first one.
19 and born 1917.
When was your first one, that little boy?
1947, I believe it was, 1947, because Pat and I left to go to Michigan. Pam was born in 48.
Yeah.
And we left to go to Michigan in 1948.
Mm-hmm.
And Pam was just a little baby, about 3 or 4 months old at that time.
Now that was over in Norris, where he had that store. And then I can remember when he had a store in Liberty.
You know about the big piece of Uncle Fat.
And I can remember when he had an ice house in Central. And when he sold bananas by the stalk, and oranges and apples and stuff in his little place. That goes back to, as far as I can remember that I can remember the first little store that he had, like an ice house apples and oranges and banana fruits and stuff and things like that. And there's a little cafe next to it, and seemed to me like Uncle Ern worked in that little cafe some. And Uncle Ern,
Granddaddy's brother, my granddaddy's brother.
yeah, was your granddaddy's brother.
Uncle
He's
Ern.
our uncle, and he finished high school, and he come and lived with us and went to college.
That's right.
Went to Clemson College in I remember displaying, he went in 1924, 1925, long in
Played
there.
on the basketball team.
Yeah, he played on the team, athletics,
Yeah.
basketball.
I know a story I'd like to hear about, and Uncle George, tell me what you remember about it. It's something I used to see as a kid in the yard, and I never did understand what happened concerning that old 36 Chevrolet that was wrecked out there behind Granddaddy's house, and somebody said it was a new and Uncle Ern borrowed it or something and wrecked it.
Uncle Ernest Warner borrowed it. Uncle Ernest Warner borrowed it. The car from Daddy.
Yeah.
It was all Daddy had was that old 36 Chevrolet. And Uncle Ernest wanted to borrow it, and he was working for it over in Spartanburg.
And then he wrecked.
And he wrecked it. And he told Daddy he'd fix it, pay for it, but he never did. To my knowing, they never give him a dime on it. I mean, that was all the way that Mom and Daddy had to go in with that old car.
Do either one of you remember anything or ever heard anything said about your granddaddy's father and mother? Any recollection of what their names were or anything about them at all? On the Palmer side.
Well, I used to hear him talk about Grandma Palmer's was a preacher, and her brother was in the war, and he got killed in Gettysburg. Is that right?
No, he got killed at the crater. He got killed in Petersburg, Virginia.
Petersburg, Virginia.
Where the crater was, yeah.
Seemed like he was blown up in a tunnel.
It
I'm
was
not
in
sure.
Petersburg is where it was at, and he got killed.
Did you know his first name or anything?
I remember on mother's side that her mother and daddy was married on horseback. They were married on horseback in Hamersham County, Georgia, right up above Clayton, up there.
That's about Clark.
Clarksville, somewhere up in there, you know.
Now, who was that, Uncle Clint?
Now, I went up in
Who
there
was married there? Canups.
to find all them people.
Yeah, up in North Carolina.
And I found the church, New Prospect Church. Mama, Aunt Jane, and all Uncle Jim and all talked about it. And Uncle Jim carried me up there one time. And we found the church. The churchyard was full of Canups, Woodses, and Hickses. They spelled the names H-I-C-K-S, Hicks.
Yeah.
And Granddaddy Woods was a big old tall, slim man.
Uncle Joe Wood.
And he had a big old beard way down to the other to his knees.
Mustache and beard come way down it like this.
Yeah.
Great big long beard. An old handlebar mustache like the
We
thing.
went up there, he had to drive, we drove old T-models up there. And Uncle Richard went one time.
Yeah.
And Granddaddy Canup and Grandma went one time with us, and Uncle Richard, Uncle Jim, and us, all in old T-model.
4 or
cars.
5 T-models
All
in
the,
a convoy.
all the
going
little
up there.
kids. And we went up there, and Uncle Richard was like a monkey. He eat bananas like a monkey, and he had a stalk of bananas on the side, little old luggage from the fender of that T-model of his, and he hung them up there. And them boys, they'd never been out of them hills up there in Hamersham County. And they'd wondered and looked at them things and wondered what there was hanging there and wondered, and Uncle Richard would get one and peel it and eat it, you know, and show them. And they'd get one and peel it. They'd never eat a banana.
They never had been out.
Seen
Never
a
had been
banana
nowhere.
all their
They never
lives.
been out of the
Didn't know
woods.
nothing.
23 and 24 years old,
Yeah.
25 years old.
Grown men.
Tell them about them old T-models, about having to back them up Dixie Hill, us going up Stone Mountain, the damn Ku Klux Klan burning across
Yeah.
up there.
We went up there one summer
Going Stone Mountain.
on
Yeah.
vacation at Stone Mountain. And Daddy drove that damn T-model up that mountain. I don't know how in the world it got on up that and on up and on up and on up and on up. When we got up as far as that thing would go.
You couldn't even see.
And they took the two T-models and put them side by side, parallel like, and took blankets and put around them.
Cover, yeah.
And used nails for pins to hold them together around that thing, and made pallets between the two cars.
And we slept on that
We
granite, that
slept
hard
on
mountain.
that hard granite there on top of Stone Mountain that
I remember
night.
that.
But we heard a racket and didn't know what it was. We walked out over there, and it was Ku Klux Klan having a rally on top of the mountain, burning the cross and everything, with the sheets and the hoods and all of them. Yeah.
This was about
Way
what,
back in the
20s?
Late
Late
20s.
20s.
late 20s or early
Yeah,
30s.
it was late 20s, somewhere around 28, 29, somewhere, or either 30. Yeah, no.
What town was it again, Uncle George, where you went and found these graves and everything? What town was that? It was in Georgia, you say?
Yeah, it's in Habersham County next to Clarksville, Georgia, over there around Clarksville, Georgia.
What, you don't remember the name of the church or anything?
Prospect, New Prospect,
That was the Canups.
New Prospect.
Now, you was talking about
Canups, it was so backwards back up in there.
grandmother Canup and them father.
Right now they talking.
We went up there. And we got there, and the house was built with slabs from a sawmill. Framed up in slabs, and a dirt floor.
Had a loft in it.
A dirt floor, and had white sand, and they'd haul some white sand in there and to make it look
From the river, yeah.
nice and neat. And they had a little ladder for us to climb, to go up in the loft to sleep. And I can remember great-grandmother getting up and grinding coffee beans to make coffee. I can remember that. And I can remember a little pipe with a little piece of cane stuck in it. And them boys had them tobacco, homemade tobacco they had, and they're smoking in a pipe, so they made me a pipe. And I filled it full, and I took about 3 draws off of it. And I was sick as a dog
Turned yellow.
from smoking it.
Green.
But they raised their own tobacco and made their living making moonshine. And I can remember Mama telling about my granddaddy, Canup, and them had made a lot of liquor, and they had benches around in the house to sit on with lids, and it was like a box, and Granddaddy had that thing full of liquor. And they come to, the law come by. Revenue people, they called them revenue people.
Yeah.
And they came by to check, they checked that house, and Grandma had all the kids to sit on that bench, cover that liquor. And now I also was told that when they would have court week, that Granddaddy would always get his buggy and load it up with liquor and put his fodder and stuff that he was going to feed his mule, and he'd head to courthouse. And he'd in Clarksville, Georgia, and he would sell that liquor while he was there at the courthouse and get enough money to get a little sugar and coffee and salt and stuff to take back to the house. He'd be gone a week, 10 days on a trip. And making the liquor is the way they made their living. Because there was nothing else they could do, because it wasn't nothing but old red hills up
That's
there.
right, and that's the rockiest country you ever seen in your life up there.
old
Really
rock, red clay.
All over that place.
And they'd raise a little corn. And I can remember going down, I can remember seeing a liquor spill. And this
Close to the house.
mash and everything, I was right out from the house. All this mash and everything was in these old barrels. And to keep that mash hot so it would ferment, they had horse manure around it to build up the heat, to ferment that mash. Get that liquor ready to run off. Make it. I remember that, and I was about, I don't know, I guess we was about 8, 9 year old, something like that, was
7, 8 years old.
7, 8 year old, or 9, or somewhere along there. I can remember
Hold your
that.
thought just a minute, I'm gonna change tape.
Pots and pans to put on the stove to get hot water. And here you go, all 5 of us, one at a time, we get in that tub. And Mama would freshen the water up a little bit with a little more warm water. A little more warm water.
Ken was the last one.
Did anybody keep tea in it and stuff for you?
They would let you in the end of the leg.
Yeah, he was last.
Good night. I guess Ken was favorite, wasn't
It was half this, you got all them
I'll tell you something else.
half bits and parts.
There's something I can remember back in 1924, 23 and 24, when we lived in Pendleton, South Carolina. And Daddy worked at the Ford place. And we lived right next to on the railroad.
Bostic Motors, wasn't it?
Yeah. And he worked with Bostic Ford people. And my daddy, it Christmas time. And back in them days, nobody had anything but a little something to eat. And Christmas morning, we got up to see what Santa Claus had brought us. And there was a little red wagon. It had some popcorn in the air in it, and a popcorn popper.
If you hold over a fireplace.
Yeah. Had that and an apple or two and an orange and some old dried grapes.
Those raisins used to come and
Yeah,
bulk in
raisins,
the bottom.
dried raisins, whatever you want to call it. That was our
Christmas.
Santa Claus.
That's it.
It was our Christmas. And we get in fussing about who was going to pull the wagon. And it was my time one time, and George's time, and Clint's time. You know, we put 2 in the wagon and 1 to push, or 1 and 2 in the wagon and 1 push and 1 pull. And that was the most fun that we ever had, was pulling our wagon
Well,
up down.
who was it run the, we got a tricycle one Christmas.
Yeah, that was Betty, got a tricycle.
No, me and you got a tricycle.
John, tell
Well,
Alan, John, wait a minute. Tell Alan, if you will, while I think of it. Tell him about the time that when we lived in Pendleton, I forgot this, about the old pig, had such a big old sow pig that we rode it. We'd sit on the pig and ride it.
Yeah, we used to ride a pig.
Yeah.
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 Big old pig.
We had a big old pig, we played with it, it was a big pet too, and we was raising a pig. And we'd get on that pig and get on his back and ride him like you'd ride a horse or
Yeah.
a bucking calf.
2 at a
or
time.
Cow,
Yes,
anything.
sir.
And we always done that. We'd ride our calves, and sometimes we'd try to get on a cow and ride him, you know. Old bull or something, try to ride him.
Did that pig man?
But going back to Pendleton, back in the early 20s,
It was a play.
Didn't seem to.
Mama
Didn't seem to.
learned to drive that T-model, and she could pull both ears down on it and just go flying. So he had all of us kids in it, and if you went around the curve or it kind of warped that bed of that body a little bit, the doors would fly open a little bit on you. Well, Mama had all us kids in there.
That's when she threw
That was George and myself and Clint
How did that-
and Kenny. There's 4 of us kids at that time. And then Aunt Odie, Mama's sister, was there, And she was there, and 1 or 2 of her kids was in the car with us.
Melvin and Lois.
Yeah, Melvin and Lois,
About
and we
6
was,
of us.
oh, we was riding. And here comes Mama around this curve, and she starts across this overhead bridge, and Blue Ridge tracks down under there, and just load the kudzu vines on the banks. And Mama goes through there, and she hits a little bump or something, I don't know what, and George went out the car. He went out and down the bank in the field, down into the railroad track. And we got on down the road to a piece where Mama and them found out they was short one of the kids. They didn't know where they'd lost it. And he come back, and was hunting. George was down in the bottom down there, in the bottom of the field where he rolled off down there.
Did it knock you out?
Hell yeah!
Told me we lived right there on the corner next to the bridge. And then Mama went around the block and come around through town, and the post office right there,
Yeah.
coming back down the other street.
And you're gonna have to make a turn, sharp turn.
And instead of turning and going to the house, she just thought she'd go, I reckon, showing ain't only how to drive. You know, she hit that bridge, and the bridge was up about that much higher than the road was.
Good.
That's old dirt road, and then ruts, and boy, she come across that thing, and when she did, I was being small kids, we was standing up.
No seatbelt.
I was standing up, and I was standing next to the door. The next thing I know, boy, I was sailing. I went down them kudzu vines and down on them railroad track. Well, what happened? In the meantime, Uncle Richard had come home by the house, and wasn't nobody there, and he heard me a-hauling out there at the railroad bridge. I said, "What's the matter with you, boy?" I said, "They throwed me out." I was crying and snot running. I damn hell mad too. It didn't hurt me. And he put me in his car, and he said, "Which way did they go?" I said, "They went that way." So we get in his old T-model, and he follows him, gets on down the road, and when he gets rolling, he blows that old horn, past him, and there I am in Uncle Richard's car. They couldn't believe it. And back when we started school in the first grade, back in Pendleton, down in Pendleton, that was back in what, 1924, wasn't it? Yeah.
We went to first grade in 1924, and that didn't have nothing but old coal stove, big old coal stove, and they had to bring in coal. The big kids would bring coal in, and wood too, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Seniors
That
do
wood,
that, yeah.
wood, coal, and
House
Yeah.
school boy.
if you had anything wrong with you, that didn't keep you home. You went to school. Didn't matter how sick or what. Didn't matter what kind of disease you had. You went to school. So whooping cough. There wasn't anything, no vaccines or nothing for that back in them days. And everybody had whooping cough. Everybody in the school had it. And everybody wanted to get the measles. Everybody had the measles. There wasn't no
Chicken pox.
quarantines or nothing. And mumps. I can remember going to school, even in Seneca, when we moved to Seneca and had the mumps, go to school with the mumps.
God, Lord.
And but we went to school with people whooping cough, and boy, kids would be sick and they'd just mess all over the floors and everything else, but school went right on. I can remember that just as plain as it is yesterday. And
I remember when it come time from the
immunization,
for not smallpox, what do you call it?
polio,
I guess smallpox.
Yeah, smallpox, right.
Smallpox.
Yeah.
And they let the seniors do it.
They
They
told
got
them.
the medicine there and everything, and they showed the seniors how to do it. Man, they just tore my arm up. I had the office arm. And from that time on, every time I'd have to have that shot, I was immune to it. And back in 60 something, when I was working overseas, I had an international immunization book. and that all had to be filled out and everything, and they had it immune for that, yeah. I didn't have to take no more of them shots. I don't know what it was, it killed it then, but that's what they gave me, killed it.
Yeah.
That kill you too,
Not me, yeah.
I remember a lot of times, I know one time we had a job delivering paper, and Daddy let us drive the car, A model, the A model car. Let us drive it on Sunday morning to deliver our papers. And, oh, that was something, to drive that car and deliver papers on Sunday morning. And we got nearly through, and it was an old misty day morning, and it had been raining, and there was a fella lived down in a little side road that went down to his house. He had to go across a little flat bridge like. And of course there was nothing on the bridge to keep you from running off of it. And here I go, boy, I'm showing out, and I go down through there, and I don't know what happened, but I didn't hit that bridge just right, and it just turned sideways on me. And it didn't run off, but one of the back wheels got off of the bridge. And I didn't know what in the world I was going to do, you know, and we just lived back up top of the hill up there. And I scared my dad he was going to find out, because I knew what was going to happen if he found it out. And I'd already burnt more gas than I was supposed to burn, delivering my papers. And here I am, and I tried to get that car to move, and it wouldn't move. And I said, what am I going to do? I never will forget it. And it's an old colored fella. His name was Maxwell. Lived down there. He carried the paper too. And I told him what I'd done. I run off down and told him what I'd done. And he know how in the world. So I said, I can't go tell Daddy. And he come and said, let me go look at it. And he come and looked at it. And he went and got another colored fellow too to help him. And they got under that wheel and raised it up, pushed the car over. And I went down and turned around and come out. And went home. I never did tell Mom and Daddy about it. Never.
Speaking of that, how in the world, how did you guys get your license?
Well, you got to be 12 years old, then you get them.
Well, we got our, George and I got our license when license first came out in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And you could get a family deal.
Yeah.
And
Paper license.
you get a piece of paper license, it's paper, and Daddy paid $2 and got his and Mama's and George and I. We got our license when we was 12 years old, and we was driving.
Could you see out the windshield?
Well, we had two models, but George and myself, or either Clint and myself, one, bought a little A model strip down here at Motor Company. It was me, you,
Yeah.
me and George and I bought it. Give $12 for it. I'll never forget it. $12 for a T model strip down.
Nothing but gas tank on it.
Had wooden wheels on it.
And
You
put-
saw
Wooden wheels.
Yeah, and
yeah.
it had a gas tank sitting up there where it feed, the gas flow down and feed it. And it had 30 by 3.5 tires on it. And it had a battery in it. It electric start. And we got that thing on Sunday. We got it out on Saturday afternoon and drove it home. And Sunday, I think we had 50 cents or something like that to get some gas, and we were going to drive our car around some. And it wasn't nothing but dirt roads then, and a lot of dirt and sand and stuff on the roads. And if you went around the curve a little too fast, that old tire just rolled right over the wheel. Well, you'd have to stop and get your tire. And if it did that, usually it ruined the tube. And when we got home, we had all 4 of the tires laying on the back of that thing. It's not a tire on it. It drove it off.
Just on the rims.
Just on the rims. But every time you crank it up, if it was hard to crank, we jack it up. Jack the back wheel up and, get it, and wind it. You know,
I remember
crank it up.
one time I was changing spark plugs in it, and I told old Ken to hold it. I had a piece of iron. I said, hold this up there, that spark plug. And the battery was dead in it, and I was pulling the crank. Next thing I know, he was laying out on the ground, and I thought that thing had broke my arm probably.
Yeah, back in them days,
That thing had knocked a fool out.
yeah.
They would kick.
Back in them days, you see people, well thought of people, and they'd be going around the arm in a sling. Every once in a while, you see somebody with an arm in a sling.
Broke off.
And that was from cranking the car.
They put too much spark on it.
Yeah, they're kicking it, and it had too much spark on it, and it kicked back and break the arm.
Like a motorcycle would do, throw you off.
I remember back
Go
when-
backwards and your hand would be that thing. It breaks your.
I don't know where y'all remember old Harold Williams or not.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I remember her.
Uncle
You
William.
remember Harold Williams? Well, Harold Williams, I was working in an ice cream parlor, and mostly how I got paid was through ice cream, and maybe $1 or something like that. And Harold Williams was working for Charlie Barron. Old man Charlie Barron. And on a Saturday night,
Let's go see if you got any fish.
Shit, I ain't gonna walk.
Saturday night,
Get your hand.
license for wine, I guess beer too at the same time. I can't remember now, but I can remember the wine part. It was going to be legal on Saturday night. And Harold Williams says, he come down there where I was at, and he says, and old man Dalton was running the pool room and had that wine already installed, getting ready to sell it. And he come down there to me and he says, John says, ever what it was, $1.25. He says, when you get off, he says, I'm not going to make it back down here, so you go over to Dalton's over there, across the street, and get us a gallon of wine. And he says, I'll get my daddy's car tomorrow, and so we'll ride around a little bit and drink it. Well, that's a big deal, wine
Big
coming,
job.
Oh boy, wine coming out, and I'm going to be one of the first to get some of that wine. Well, I got the wine, and I walked all the way home when I got off from work with my hand in that handle of that jug for wine. And the next morning, Harold Williams come pick me up. And when he picked me up, he had an Avon Roadster. He picked me up, boy, and I run up behind the barn and got that wine, and we took off, and we got some of a few blocks from the house. We had to open that wine, that jug up, and we started drinking that old sweet wine, and next thing you know, we were so sick we didn't even know what world we was in. And the next thing I can remember, that old T-model was laying over on its side, and the top was tore plumb off of it.
Oh my God.
And he was scared to what we're going to do. I said, I don't know what we're going to do. I said, but I'm going to get home if I can, and I don't want no more of your wine now. I don't want no more. He said, well, what we're going to do with it? I said, I don't know what you're going to do with it, and I don't care, but I don't want it. But everywhere we was at, I walked home. The time I was still sick, and I had to milk a cow that night. I never forget it. And that was the sickest sick that I ever went through, was drinking that wine. And the first beer I ever drank was at the Anderson Fair. And they had this old Jack's beer. And 15 cents a bottle. And I know when I come to the place where they sold that beer, I got up on my tiptoes, standing way up high, and ordered me a beer, and they give it to me. And I'm standing there trying to drink that bottle of beer, and that's all the stuff I ever tried to drink.
Where's my dad's horse?
Awful, awful taste. But I said, well, if all these other fellas can drink it, I can too. That was the first beer that I ever drank. Woo. First homebrew I ever drank was with Granddaddy Palmer.
Tell us about that, how that happened.
Oh, we hitchhiked. Seemed like Clint and George and myself hitchhiked the Norris one together, hitchhiked. Now back in them days, you just get out and thumb a ride.
People pick you up,
We hitchhiked to Granddaddy. And we
Get all the granddaddies out.
and Granddaddy would get out there, you know, and we'd go to the store and he'd give us a little snack or something. We thought that was something. And then we'd get out there on the back porch before Grandma called us in for supper. He'd get us, all right, boys, get what you want. And he had a dipper there, and you just dip it out of the churn. All you wanted, you know.
Granddaddy.
Yeah, he wanted you to just drink it.
Drink it like water, that's what he wanted.
And I remember how when we used to go over to Calhoun, see Uncle George, and Uncle George would get daddy drunk. Boy, Mama hated that.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that.
Uncle George was, he reminded me, he married Daddy's sister, ain't bag. Uncle George, he's about the size of the Uncle Clint now. He like Granddaddy Palmer, he was a big fella, and he could drink a lot of liquor. And we would go there on a Sunday afternoon, and of course they had, we had cousins our age and enjoyed the visits and everything. But Uncle George would get Daddy off and get him started drinking, and Daddy never could handle liquor. Never could, and he'd get drunk, and Mom would get mad, and here we'd go home. I never will forget that.
Yeah, I remember all of that.
And Uncle Warren loved to do the same thing when Daddy would he let Daddy get icy, so to speak. He'd get Daddy drinking, get him drunk, and he'd get sick and vomit. No, Mama have to drive home.
I was telling them, we were talking last night with Calvin Lee, telling about when we went to the movies. Back when Ken Maynard and Tom Mix and
Who gets him?
Hoop Gibson,
Tim
and
McCoy.
that was the main,
Tim McCoy.
Bob
it
Steele.
was the main cowboys back in our days, back in the early days. And cost a dime to go to the movie, and you got a good seat in the theater for a dime. You know, for a nickel, you went upstairs for
upstairs,
flat,
having a nickel.
but for a dime, you went downstairs. But anyhow, we went to Uncle George's one Sunday, and they got to talking about a certain movie that Ken Maynard or some of them was in. And they talked about him getting shot. And somebody shot Ken Maynard, and then they had to take him to the doctor, and the doctor operated on him. And Uncle George said, "Now, Lee, I know that he got shot." And he showed it just as plain as day.
Showed him bleeding.
And he said, "I saw the blood coming from it, and I sit there and looking at this when they doctor took that bullet out of him, and you could hear it when he dropped it in the pan." And he said, "I know that to be a fact."
That's it.
And that man really believed that man was shot.
If he was living today and could see some of them bullets how they pop.
Who was it that was telling the story about Ruby Goodiron saw a Western movie and she got scared and thought that all this killing and shooting was going on and ran out screaming murder?
I don't.
Somebody,
Well, I remember speaking
my-
about grandmother. I remember grandmother, Mom and Dad took grandmother Palmer to a movie when she was staying with us. First movie she ever saw, and perhaps the only one. She went in, and the name of the movie was King of Kings, one of the first talking movies of ours. And
Come out here a second.
and she and when it was a Metro Goldwyn Mayer picture, and when the lion come up, you know, to roar like that, Mother told us and Daddy told us how grandmother yelled off and screamed, "Get out of the way so that lion don't get me." I'll never forget.
Everybody took it as real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember too, you remember boys how we used to when we wanted to see a movie and we didn't have any money, we'd ask old man Richardson,
Stand out there, you got
go
shot.
ahead and get my brother. Now, in the big man, oh Johnny, come by, oh go and get my brother. Then George would come by, like this, and I want to go back in. Yeah. Oh, what the days.
Here's the good one. We, back in those days, of course, picture show, any entertainment, anything you got to go or see. And every once in a while, I like to go and see Daddy in the movie. He'd stand back at the back a lot of times, and when the cowboys is fighting, or if it's a boxing picture, he'd stand back there and grunting, hitting. He's just fighting Carol.
Help him.
He's helping them. He really enjoyed it.
He loved wrestling.
He loved his wrestling, that's
Oh,
what's
yeah,
fact.
he did like that,
Oh,
didn't he?
he loved it like I do. I know it's all fake.
No, that Texas Wrestling
But
was on TV, Texas
I've
Wrestling.
never been to a wrestling match in my life.
Yeah.
I've never been to one. No. Occasionally, when I'm flipping channels, I see it a little bit, but Rachel says I'm the channel flipper of the family.
Yeah.
I can go up and down that thing, boy, not miss a station.
Oh, I tell you one thing, it sure pisses Pat off.
I remember when we went to Hawaii, and we got to Hawaii, and Johnny says, Daddy said, you feel like going to see wrestling tonight? Boy, and I thought that was something. I said, man, I've been flying all day and half the night trying to get here.
You perked up, didn't you?
And I said, we're going, the first thing I get to do is go see some wrestling. I said, yeah, we'll go. Well, he already had the tickets and everything for ringside seats. And we went in the big arena there in Hawaii, and Nick Bockwinkel was he was a world champion, and he was wrestling somebody.
Was it in the 1800s?
And well, he's a commissioner now. You'll see him every Saturday night on TBS now wrestling. He's a commissioner of wrestling. But he was wrestling. I thought that was something, you know, to get to see the world champion wrestle. And then we got to see a lot of Japanese over there wrestling, you know, and different things. But I thought that was something. But Louise and I used to take Mom and Daddy to Anderson. Anderson used to have wrestling every week or two, you know. And it cost about $1, $1.50 to get in. And that was good sports, you know. And recreation, to go to drive to Anderson and get a Coca-Cola or something and go to wrestling.
And go watch a ball game down there like we
We used to go, remember Al Seminars?
And we go and sit down there, Daddy'd sit down there at that wrestling, and Mom would be on one side of him, and Louis would be on the other side, and he was just doing it. You know, and he'd beat him to a pulp.
Yeah, we used to watch old Eddie Kraft pitch.
Yeah, Al Seminars, he'd knock him home.
But I remember, now, Daddy did a lot of whipping. And I remember one good one he gave me one time. That was beginning to smoke a little bit, and Daddy smoked Lucky's.
Lucky Strikes.
And he'd come home from work, and he'd have a pack of Lucky Strike cigarettes, and he'd lay them up on the mantel. Then he'd go clean up and get ready for supper. Well, the first thing we know, here'd come George around, and he'd get one out of that pack, you know. Well, I didn't know George got one, so I come around, I'd slip me one. Here'd come Clint around, and get him one. And we'd shake that pack down, you know, where it still looked full. Well,
As if he couldn't tell the difference.
I got me my cigarettes, you know, and I said, I never forget it.
Tailor-made cigarette.
Yeah, man. And I got out and I got me a match, my matches and what I had to have, and I went off way down in the pasture.
Down toward the pump house.
Yeah, down towards the pump house, and went down in the pasture, and I got there, and I leaned back against a tree, and I got an enjoyable smoke. And I lit that thing, and I was smoking. I took 2 or 3 draws off of it, you know.
Looked up.
No, I heard something coming. You hear the wind when it starts to blow. My daddy he must have had a stick 6 to 8 foot long, big thing. That thing come around, it wrapped come around that tree. Got me. Well, that scared me to death. He didn't have to do no more. That's enough. And he got me 2 or 3 more licks, you know, and I couldn't do nothing but just lay down. I tried to protect myself.
You remember? Do you remember the time that we were all sneaking off smoking down there toward the old pump house down down across the hill down there where old Mag Rich used to go get her dirt to eat.
Yeah,
over there.
she ate dirt
She
all the
ate
time.
dirt. But anyway, you know, we'd come back and Mom would always smell our hands to see if we'd been smoking. And we'd stop by and get pine tree, piece of pine.
Oh,
rub our
wild
hand.
onion, try to throw
Yeah,
wild onion up, you know.
but she could smell right through that stuff.
And they talk about stove wood a while ago. You dang right she'd pick up that stove wood.
And throw it to you. You better believe
Boy,
it.
when she pulled that stove wood back, she said, yeah, Mama, yeah, you're right. But I remember
This ice.
back, I was 12 years old, and I was, I've been eating some raw peanuts all day. And I got to, I got home, and I was just dying with my stomach, and Mama tried to make me take a old castor oil. That's what they give us back in them days, was castor oil. And my stomach was hurting, and Mama says, take this castor oil. I said, Mama, I can't drink. But I always give it to you in a cup, and there's so many of us young and stuff. The cups didn't have no handle on them in our house.
They'd already broken off.
Rub all the handles off. Anyhow, she gave me that old castor oil, and I drank it. Of course, she threatened me, you know, to whip me, and I drank it. And I kept getting sicker and sicker, and I was just throwing up and heaving. And Daddy come home from work. And she says,
Me?
evidently she must have told him I was putting on, that I really was sick. And took me to Lonnie's drugstore. Back then, you went to the drugstore and you went in the back, and they doctored you. The doctor come in, he'd look at you back there in the back behind the drugstore. And old Dr. Orr and Daddy, which were real good friends because they came from the same town. They were good buddies. And Dr. Orr looked at me and examined me, and he said, Lee, you better get this boy to the hospital. Ooh, that just scared me to death. I even quit hurting.
Yeah.
And the funny part about it is this is how people are and were back in those days, because we didn't have nothing. We loved them. We loved we loved one another, and we had each other, and we had food on the table. But for anything else, I can't say we had. But I got Daddy brought me back. Told Mama he's going to have to take me to Anderson to the hospital. And he was waiting.
Which was the closest hospital?
Waiting on me to get there, to operate. Well, here comes, of course, I've been wearing them old unions, you know. We wore unions back then. I guess I'd wore them a week. Hadn't, you know, one time.
Racist flags.
One time for the weekly bath. So here comes Mama, she undressed and gets me lays me off and gets me a clean suit of union suit, you know. And then to look at my feet's rusty and dirty. And she gets out there with that old Watkin soap and old brush trying to clean it, you know, and all that. And so Daddy get me to Anderson right quick, to the hospital. And they took me in there as quick as I got there, they operated on me. But when they got through, they took me in a ward, and I was in a ward looked like with 15 or 20 men.
It's like the damn army. Is what it was.
Yeah. And I was in this ward, and my daddy was fixing to go back. He had to get back to Seneca. And he pulled out cigarettes that he had, because he knew I'd been slipping around. And he said, son, I'll try to get back tomorrow and see if I can. If I can't get back tomorrow, I'll get back as quick as I can to see you. But he said, and he gave me a quarter. He gave me a quarter and laid me cigarettes. That's all, probably every dime he had to his name. And he probably went home without a cigarette. But he gave me the cigarettes that he had in that bag. And that's how I started smoking regular and wasn't ashamed of it.
Well, getting back to your operation, of course it wasn't me that operated on it, was you. But it seemed like I remember, John, they gave you a spinal rather than ether. And you walked, for months you had to walk bent way over.
Yeah, that's right. In other words, they didn't put me to sleep, and I was crying and everything, and they put give me spinal shots, and had me paralyzed, and I couldn't feel it. And I stayed in the hospital a week, and then the old man Shepherd come and got me in the hearse. Got me in the hearse, that's right.
They used the hearse for an ambulance.
They
back
used
then.
it for an ambulance, and he
Absolutely.
come and got me in the hearse and brought me home, and they were very careful not to move me and put me in the bed. And I stayed in the bed another week. And they told me I could get up and kind of move around. Well, I couldn't get up. I was on bed over. I don't know where in the world I could
man.
Because I've been in the bed too long.
It was 6 months long before you could straighten up.
Having a flinch.
It was straight like an old man like he does now.
You remember that one time you got up while we were living over on Cherry Street? You got up and put your boots on. You remember how they used to buy us those boots for Christmas?
Yeah.
They had Etiquette Johnson, you know, and had a big
Yeah,
little
yeah.
pocket over here for a knife.
Yeah.
And you got up and put your boots on one morning, and the damn rat was down in
A
the
rat was in there. Lord have mercy.
rat was in his boot. He couldn't get it off.
Yeah, boy, no, listen.
I tell you, that boot come on. And I'll tell you something else. Now, this year make people sit back and they'll laugh about it. We used to sit in the house in the wintertime with a little fire or either a little 2-eye stove to heat with.
Uh-huh.
And we could sit there and watch rats, and we could hear them crawling all in behind the mantle and all back in there.
Trying to get warm.
And sometimes their old tail that long would hang down, and we'd be standing there with a bush and I couldn't get out. And you hear,
You see, we'll get John tonight.
after a while, you'd get another. And sometimes I can remember Daddy, and maybe he'd get 3 or 4 tails, you know. So that's how rats were, and you didn't have no way of controlling them except with a rat trap.
The cats.
Well, sometimes the cats, if they eat too much, they wasn't interested in a rat, no.
Rats will whoop the cats.
I remember too, you remember when back during the Depression, when Dad was only getting about 3 days a week work, you know, and we used to walk down the corner of Ross
Pick back.
and pick blackberries,
blackberries.
and canned blackberries, pick blackberries all day. I remember them.
We picked a mini gallon, tried to sell them for $10 a gallon.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
got
sir.
a quarter, you're doing good, but
Yes, sir.
usually
10, 15 cents a gallon is what you got.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's true.
And Dad was making, when Dad worked a full week now with the 5 kids there, 5 boys, and maybe Mother pregnant with Hazel, the top dollar Dad ever made there was $37.50 a week.
he wasn't making about 25 or 26 then.
Yeah, he wasn't making much.
Back during the Depression, yeah.
But you know, George, y'all was talking about a while ago, back during the Depression, you know, we didn't have any way to go. Well, I can remember when we couldn't afford to buy a tag
For a
for
car.
the car. And the car sat under the garage in the barn.
Hmm.
And chickens,
Everything else
used
roosted
it,
on it.
and
We played in
had
it.
nests in it, and the chicken laid eggs in the back of that old thing,
Mhm.
in the back of that car. And Olin D. Johnson, who is Liz Patterson's
Dad.
father, and you know, she was in the legislature, but her daddy ran for governor on one issue, that he had seen that everybody in South Carolina could buy a tag and it wouldn't cost them over $3. And that's how people started buying their tags. But tags back then was $23, $25. And people couldn't afford it.
Now they need to because they
But
live
we
from
used
week
to
to
keep,
week.
I know, we'd take that old car Daddy had under the shed up there, under the barn, and jack it up.
Keep the tires.
to keep them wheels from being on the ground, rotting.
Drain the crankcase.
And the
too.
chickens would lay eggs and just roost all over that car.
John, you was talking about the operation there for appendicitis. You remember the other one you had when you had that big ball or carbuncle on your neck?
Yeah.
there?
Yeah,
Tell us
Dr.
about
Art cut that thing. I remember Dad taking him up that, went up them steps there, old Busy Bee Cafe, right along in there.
Well, you went to a chiropractor first,
I
didn't
went
you?
to a naturopath.
Yeah.
His name was Andrew Mitchell. And he treated it. And I don't know what he did, but it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
What's that carbuncle?
And they called it back in them days a carbuncle.
We call him George now.
But anyhow, Daddy took me up to, well, he took me to old Dr. Orr, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Old Dr.
Dr.
Orr.
Art cut that thing.
And Dr. Orr looked at that thing. I tell you, looked like a big growth back there on the back of
Looked
the
like a
thing.
daughter.
Big as you could.
Like a
and
Siamese
listen,
twin.
And it was killing me. You talking about pain and hurt? Boy, I was going through it. Nobody knew how I suffered. And old Dr. Orr just got up and he said, I think you'd had a drink or two.
He
And
felt okay.
he says, Lee, we got to lance this thing. And I remember he reached over and he got a little scalpel, a little old knife, and he said, shh, like that. Boy, it just
Exploded.
got all
That
that
damn
came
thing,
out of there.
Dad told us that damn thing hit the wall, ricocheted, and hit another wall, ricocheted.
Good.
Yeah,
All that pressure.
Yeah, it wasn't matter that you're getting blood poisoning. What was
Yeah,
the matter?
dying, slowly dying, from listening to old Andrew Mitchell treating it. You remember old
Down,
Dog?
go down,
That's
get a
his
treatment.
brother.
How'd you boil? How'd you carbuncle? We call them carbuncles, I believe.
Yeah, that's
didn't we?
what we call them.
And
carbuncle.
I got to go get a treatment. You go down and get a treatment. I don't know what he done.
Well, he
It put some
put some kind of heat on it, you know, and tell me, well, it's looking better, you know, and I didn't know. He used to be old man Dindy. Old man Dindy used to work for the pure oil gas people. Now this sure gets you too, and people laugh about it. Back in them days, a filling station didn't buy but just a few gallons of gas at a time because there wasn't many cars. Well, old man Dindy drove a gas truck for the pure oil gas people. And he had a 5-gallon can, and he'd open the valve and he'd fill that can up, and then he'd pour it, had a funnel, and he'd pour it in the tank. If a man wanted 50 gallons, he'd fill it up 10 times. He'd put 50 gallons,
back and forth.
100 gallons, whatever.
now, I don't know, Alan, where it was where they didn't have the hose, or didn't have the tanks, underground tanks weren't big enough, or what? Or the damn people back then were so damn stupid they didn't know it better.
No, listen, there wasn't but a few.
There wasn't no money.
There wasn't but a few stations back then. There was far and few between. You'd see an old country store and have an old gas pump sitting outside of it. And if that thing was closed, you wasn't going to get no gas.
That's right.
They didn't stay open but just a few hours and just closed.
And I guess one of the make you feel big, you got to pump that thing and pump it that fat or full.
Yeah,
Throw
just
that
get
thing,
that-
that gas come in that thing.
And there wasn't no measuring. You just look up and they'd pump up. And old
They
man
come down
Bowie,
there to-
old man Bowie
Yes,
run
sir.
the rock cut.
Down there.
Yes, sir.
He run the rock cut station.
Big
If
old
you
long
got a
handle
pair,
about
you
that
tell
long
him
to
you
put
want
on
the
the side
dollar
of
for
it,
it.
work back and forth.
He'd look up there and he'd stand there and he'd spit that backer and he'd run a little bit in, and then he'd stop and let that gas settle because it was doing this way in that glass up
They
there.
weren't gonna give you too much, was it?
He'd look at it, spit, and then he'd give you another squeeze on the pump. Yeah. Well, what else now? Well, he's cutting you out of about a quart
Done.
every time he pumped. You get the quart.
Where's it going?
You know, so he wasn't there. He was never coming up short. And that's the way we went through that thing. I remember that just clear and plain. But you talk about funny things happening to you. one of the stupidest things that ever happened to me. And I know I drank, you know, I always had a little toddy around, and I always tried to be, you know, as neat with it as I could.
Just drank it up.
You know, I was fixing to go on vacation that day, and I was trying to make my rounds, and I was trying to make them quick. Just one store hitting one store and another. It so happened that a day or two before then, I'd had somebody in the car with me, and they had drank a can or two of beer. And them empty cans was in my car. And it so happened that I was busy that day and in a hurry, and I hadn't had a drop to drink or anything. But I was coming around, going to Dacresville, where I was headed. And it wasn't nothing but them old curves like that. And as I started around, I had a brand new Maverick. And that thing was run out, and I started around that old elbow curve, and I thought I had to have a little bit of the other side, you know, to make it around that curve. And here come a black man meeting me, and he was going a little too fast, like me, and he had to have a little bit on my side. Well, if I had to have some of his side, and he had to have some of my side, we couldn't do nothing but head on. That's all we could do. But we did get away from one another, and I missed him altogether, but there was a ditch out there. About 5 or 6 foot ditch. Right in front, over there. And that Maverick went down in that ditch, that hole like that, with the windshield wasn't about 12 inches from your head, if it was that far. And no such thing as a seat belt. Well, as that thing went down in that hole, and the speed that I was going, and my head hit that windshield, it broke my neck just like that. And I'm sitting there, and I felt, you know, I was getting short of breath, and I said to myself, you know, I'm dying. And I got out of the car. And I got out of the car, I just almost fainted, and I just went down, and I just lay down in the middle of the highway. And here come a good old colored lady. People talk about, oh, but there's some good ones out there. And this old colored lady got me, and she said, "Mister, said I believe you broke your neck." And she got me and raised me up and lowered my head between her legs in her lap. And she helped me and twisted my head till I could breathe all right. And she helped me in that position. And they had called the ambulance, and when they put me on the stretcher, they put something on each side and helped my head, got me to where I could breathe, and shot me to the hospital right quick. And from that day to this day, people still say I was drinking, you know, and I hadn't had a drop.
Mm-hmm. But found those empty beers in the car.
But I could say I hadn't been drinking, and everybody shook their head, and this is where I had, see?
Mine was
So, that was that time, and the next accident I had, I broke my hip and broke my thighs and broke my legs and everything, and pulled my leg from off. And I was going down, I was on my way to, I had an appointment, and I was coming with a fella down in Fountain Inn. At a certain time, I was running about 15 minutes late, and I was running about 80 miles an hour. I had what was that, George? About a 80-something Ford? Yeah, four-door Ford. And I was going, and it was beginning to light snowfall. And I was coming from Pickens, and I was going down this long hill. It was about a mile and a half long. And on the side over there is nothing but a field. And the further you get down that hill, the deeper that field is. And I was going down there, and here comes a car that I see way down there. And it's a snaking across the road in front of me. Well, I'm in a hurry, and I say, well, to myself, they ain't gonna be in my way when I meet them. They'll get over on their side. And I kept just staying, and I must have been running, I don't know, I'd say running anywhere from 80 to 100 miles an hour. And bless Pete, it was too much on my side, and I couldn't slow down, so I got over as far as I could. And when I got over as far as I could, that right wheel went down about that far on the shoulder, was down about a foot lower than the highway was. And when it did, it shot me right, I went sailing across the treetops. And when I hit one tree, and they did me this way, long ways, turning. And when that car stopped, the motor was still running and sitting on its all four wheels, and the hood was up. And the radio playing, just like I had it. And I looked out up here and I saw fence. I said, I'm down in a pasture, you know. I'm down in a pasture. I'd have to get out of here and get somebody to get me out of here. I didn't think I'd hurt. Didn't know I'd hurt. I couldn't get to the door because my foot and this leg was back behind me. I said, oh Lord, to myself, I said, I broke my leg. You know, that's all I thought. I broke my leg. And finally, I got the door open, and I got out on and stood on this good foot. And this leg was all pieces coming out. And bone, I could feel the bone sticking out all over me. You know, I didn't know I was broke 3 times below the knee and 3 or 4 times above the knee, and my hip full plumb out. But that day, I had a drink, you know, a drink. And that was early that morning. This was late in the afternoon. And I was drinking again. You know, that's the first thing people say.
Yeah, you was drunk again.
Yeah.
And
Drinking.
nobody ever did find out who them people was that run me off the road like that. And I'm suffering today from that. Mm-hmm. I've got pins. I begged them to cut mine, just go ahead and just slice it off, because it's tore off anyhow. And all them nerves and all this breaking, I like to die. Nobody's ever suffered pain like you suffered that, and all them nerves, you know, and the pain. And they put this leg in a thing and pulled it. I like to die. Just pulled it straight and buckled it down straight like that, and then buckled me in a contraption of a thing like this where I couldn't move, nothing. And they kept me like that till they got me in an operating room, and they cut my clothes off of me in the operating room. Cut them off. And they put me to sleep. And when I woke up, they had put this hip back together, pinned it up, and put a brace like a boomerang up this leg and to hold this hip in. Put a steel pin here, steel pin here, 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 and here. 5 pins plus that thing. And I thought I never was going to be able to walk. That's all I can do to walk now. And it's hurting me so bad now, and I'm having trouble with it now, worse than I ever have had, and I can't hardly walk now with it. But that leg won't carry, this hip won't carry my weight. so I'm soon gonna have to go to a crutch if I don't get better. I'm to hold some weight off of me.
You'd have a heck of a time trying to go through a metal detector at the airport.
Sure would. Yeah,
I did. Well, look, listen, when we went to Hawaii and going through the metal detector, they got me. And
Left side.
I had to put off everything I had, put my watch, everything I had, and they said, all right, turn around and go back. I turned around and go back through there, and that thing go off again, you know. And I couldn't figure out. They said, well, something, whatever they said, I don't know what it was, but Louis said, well, he's got pins in his legs, steel pins, and he's got a hip that's got a brace over it. And they put
Nothing wild but the dealing. What you playing? 7 card?
Stud?
Yeah. Another queen and possible club flush. A 3
Nothing.
and a possible pair of bullets. 9 and a possible, and a king. Ace, pair of aces bet.
Pair of aces, I'll bet 3 cents. I'll be in just a second here. And nothing's wild, is that right?
That's right. Nothing wild but the dealing.
Okay, there's my nickel. Pay it in, man.
John, what are you gonna do?
Nickel to you.
I'm gonna fold.
Let's see what you got in the hole.
Yes,
Yeah.
You folded a long time ago.
Yeah. Deuces are wild. 5 card draw, excuse me, and deuces are wild.
Okay.
There's a draw poker now, you get 3 cards. Don't let nobody see.
That's
Whoa,
it.
whoa, whoa.
That's it. That's JT's.
Mom.
All right. Oh, that's it right there. That's it.
Woo, boy, it's a shame. Beats rap on Sunday.
Only got
My mistake. I'm sorry.
It's all right. You gonna keep them?
Nickel.
Nickel.
Don't never count your money while you're sitting at the
At
table.
the table.
There's soon enough for counting.
Nickel does, John. That's my nickel.
Nickel.
2, 4, 5. I'm in.
2.
Thank you, sir.
2 for me.
2 for JT.
Yes, here.
2 for me.
And
2 for
deuces
Ken.
are
I'll
wild.
take a book.
Damn, that's all I lose away.
I'm gonna draw 1.
This is wild, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know I can be that way.
That's a nickel. I put a quarter in there. Have any money?
You had 20 cents coming.
Okay, I bet a nickel. Thank you, John.
I'm in for a nickel.
Gonna cost you another nickel.
Uncle Clint,
That won't beat mine. 3 kings.
I ain't got nothing but a pair of aces.
What you got, son?
Pair of jacks.
Jack.
Three
What,
jacks.
Three jacks. 3 jacks.
3 jacks.
He wins.
I
You want
had
it?
3 eights.
If I had to throw that doggone deuce away.
I'd have won.
That's all. There you go.
I'd have had 4 eights.
Good night.